Awesome, wonderful. That always scares me. So, hi everyone. So this is our wonderful new friend. Would you mind introducing yourself to our viewers today?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Monica Rivera. I'm a model, I'm an actress, as well as a content creator.
Wonderful. And so we are speaking with Monica about her career and who she is as a Latinx creator. It is Hispanic Heritage Month, so we are very excited about this. So can you tell us how you got into your modeling and or acting career?
Yeah, so with modeling, it's something I've kind of always wanted to do. I was definitely one of those girls that would sit down and watch like America's Next Top Model, or I'd flip through magazines and be like, oh, this is so cool. Especially being Puerto Rican, Miss Universe was always like a big thing growing up, just watching the
Oh,
competition. So I always really loved the idea of just being able to put on something pretty and transform myself. And so that's kind of how I got into modeling at first. It really kind of started with Instagram as well. My friend, she told me, hey, just walk into some boutiques and like local boutiques to Jacksonville, Florida, and see if they would let you model for them to get some experience. So I started off doing that. One of them ended up having a fashion show. Then it kept on growing from there on out. And now I'm signed with an agency here in Atlanta and I've been doing either freelance stuff or agency work ever since then. And when it came to acting, acting was kind of a complete accident, honestly. I did some theater and drama club stuff when I was in high school, and I loved it. Um, Basically, after one of the fashion shows for one of the boutiques local to Jacksonville had ended, I'd met some people, and her daughter had done background for Stranger Things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that show. That's so incredible. She gave me the information, and I submitted knowing like there's probably no chance. And I got a call back. And my first day on set, I ended up getting featured right away. I met pretty much the entire cast, like all of my favorites.
oh, that's
And
so
I
cool.
kept doing more and more background work. And I was like, okay, if I want to take this seriously, I should try auditioning for proper shows or even just like smaller films and things like that. But I also thought it was really crazy because everyone at some point says they want to be an actor. So I kind of made a bet with myself and I said, if I can book my first audition, then I'll keep doing it. And the ironic part was my first audition, I did book it. It was for a TV pilot, but the thing that sucks with TV pilots is that they don't always end up going through. So I booked it and they just didn't have the budget and never ended up filming. But I still made that
Huh.
promise to myself. So I took that as a sign. I was like, okay, I guess I have to keep doing this then. And ever since then, I've been, featured with my first with DC, doing Suicide Squad, the second one that just came out. So that was really exciting. I got my first trailer and everything through that. And even my first time going to LA even was for a show that's going to be on the CW. So it's like slowly but surely it accumulates and you meet more people, and that's kind of what made me fall in love with all of it and really kept me on the track of modeling and acting.
Oh my goodness, that is such a journey, especially with the most recent things that you have been featured in. So can you share your experiences that you had on set on like Stranger Things or Suicide Squad if you're able to?
Yeah, sure. So, Stranger Things was definitely, it was funny because it was definitely more of like a cattle call, meaning that they try to get as many people as they can because they're looking for very specific things. They're looking to see if you're whether to if you want to perm your hair, if you want to cut it a certain way. Basically, if you want to really take on the '80s like look and lifestyle with the bang and the big fluffy hair. Thankfully, being Latina, I already have curly hair. You can't really see right now because it's up in a bun, but I already have curly hair, so it was really weird because it was almost like it happened over the summer, I believe, of 2018. So it was almost like a funny summer camp where I met a whole bunch of other people that were my age or a little bit older. And with a lot of those people I met on that site, I'm still friends with them. Even with one of the web series that I'm in, I met the director for that web series on the set of Stranger Things. So it's a weird thing where everyone kind of grew in their own way from it. Um, but yeah, and then also just being on, working with James Gunn for Suicide Squad, that was something that would like blew my mind because I was like, oh, these people actually exist. Like it was just one of those things where you sit there and you're like, oh, you're not just like a picture on my phone or someone you read up on like an article online. Like it was just really surreal and it was like just funny. Like, you'd read all this stuff online and then you actually get to see how these people are in person. And you're like, oh, they're actually pretty cool or like kind of weird or very interesting. Or just having these interactions. It's always really, really fun and interesting just to see how people are or perceived online versus, how cool or weird or interesting they can be in person.
That is honestly amazing. And how did you feel like knowing that you were in such like a big film like for DC specifically because it is a very large franchise. So how did you feel knowing that you were going to be on the big screen like that?
I honestly felt extremely grateful. I was kind of taken aback because initially the call that I submitted for was actually just for background. It was around the time I was still working an office job back in Jacksonville. And I had submitted for it just thinking like, oh, I miss being on set. I'll just do a little bit of background stuff because I was still back home. I wasn't like that one summer I was doing nothing but booking stuff in Atlanta. Um, and essentially what ended up happening, I got an email back. I was still at work. I shouldn't have been scrolling through my phone, but I had my phone open and I looked and I saw and I was like, oh, important. And I opened it and they actually had told me like, hey, yeah, because you have this experience as, being able to do dancing and everything, for real, we want to upgrade your contract to a SAG contract, meaning like I'd get away, I would get my credits or my name in the credits. I would get a trailer and all this other stuff. And I would be trained by a professional choreographer for this specific scene that they need. And also essentially means that the director looked at my photos and said, I want that girl. So it's one of those things where you sit there and you're like, oh gosh, it's very humbling. And you just sit there and you're like, oh my gosh, like you never know when someone can just look at you and essentially change your life or change a trajectory of where your career could be.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, that's so amazing. It's very inspiring hearing all of that. Oh my goodness. And so you did mention that in a previous question I asked of like growing up as a Puerto Rican girl, that of course you've probably seen like Next Top Model, Miss America, all of that. So
Mhm.
as also someone who is Puerto Rican and remembering that frequently,
Mhm.
um, you stated that was one of your first instances of wanting to be someone like that, like a model or like
Mhm.
someone who just emanates beauty. How do you influence
Mhm.
your Latinx culture within the career that you have?
I believe I kind of use my culture to essentially become a forefront for these different industries where there's not always going to be that representation, and it's not always going to be like the representation that you're used to seeing. Sometimes I notice there's a very certain demographic, like if they're looking for a Hispanic girl, she will only have super straight hair and she'll only be this particular complexion and all of that stuff. And I just think it's, even though there's so many variances and so many just, how would I say this, skin tones and accents and faces that represent Latin faces, I feel like it's important for me to put that in the forefront. I feel like for whatever reason, I notice like sometimes people put that on the back burner. Case example, with a lot of actors, you don't find out that they're Latino until someone does the digging and say, oh yeah, they're Latino, or they're just happen to be noticed as Latino because they're kind of confining in whatever stereotype that Hollywood or the media has it to be considered. Okay, yeah, this person is definitely Hispanic. So I feel like being authentic to myself and also, being Puerto Rican, being Boricua, being loud about it is really how I feel I make a difference. Because the thing is, I'm not going to dumb myself down just to seem more appeasing to the person that may book me, or dumb myself down so that other people feel more comfortable with me in a room because I don't fit, certain other standards of beauty when it comes to this industry. I think by being authentically who I am, and you're starting to see it more and more, they want to see more of different shades, different types, not just Puerto Rican, like every single type of, every single type of person that could represent their country and who they are. And I think it's starting to finally come through. And I feel like being authentic to myself is what makes a difference.
Of course. And since it is Hispanic Heritage Month, can you share like how in small ways do you celebrate your Latinidad or like your Hispanic heritage?
Absolutely. First and foremost, you can take the girl off the island, but you can't keep me away from the food. So
Yep.
constantly, even like last night, I would just make myself like certain seafood dishes that I love because, like, yeah, I may not be able to go to Puerto Rico all the time because, unfortunately, the stuff with the pandemic, or, always hang out with family because of the distance you have, but I can still indulge in little ways, or even just indulging in certain television shows that have that representation, or are just fully in Spanish because I want to be able to see more of the actors that look like me, look like you, and like be able to support them, because if they see those shows get good ratings, they're going to want to book more of those people. So in turn, it ends up being a full circle of I support you, you support me, or even just like looking to see if I'm going to, case example, Mija, I freaking love Kyra. she is someone who wanted me to model for her brand. And in turn, like I'm always talking about her. Even like if I'm out and someone sees my shirt, they're like, oh, what is that? I was like, oh, this is my friend's brand, that type of thing. So also just looking for other like local Latinas, whether it be whatever it is their journey is, trying to support them, the best I can, especially with everything that's going on. It's a little crazy right now because of the pandemic, but I feel like even little things, whether it be purchasing or just giving a shout out on Instagram or showing genuine hype for when someone makes a little milestone in their career as a Latina. I think it's so important. And even just joining groups that facilitate more of like our culture and everything as well.
I think that is truly amazing, especially since a good part of Yes Mija and yourself started in Jacksonville, Florida. Like
Mm-hmm.
Florida was a nice baseline, and we have so many Hispanics from Florida, and we don't get to represent that often there,
Mm-hmm.
strangely enough. And I always think that's a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, so you did travel to New York City recently, and
Mm-hmm.
was it for like Fashion Week or just a personal vacay?
It was definitely for Fashion Week. I thankfully, ironically, also in Jacksonville, I got in contact with a photographer who does work for Condé Nast, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, all of those, very reputable publications. And he kind of took me on and kind of helped mold me a little bit as far as modeling goes and do some test shoots and everything. And he just happened to know essentially some designers up in New York that needed models. And he was like, hey, I can connect you to, if you'd like, you'd be able to walk for them and, be able to get more affiliated with people in New York. So I didn't have to go to castings traditionally like most models would do. So it was like very interesting for my first time. I kind of skipped one of the bigger, more stressful steps of New York Fashion Week and just got right into it and was able to walk. And the funny thing is, initially I was just meant to walk for one designer, but in the same, room where all the stuff was happening, there was another model that had dropped and she ended up pulling me aside and she was like, can you walk for this other designer? So it was like a very surreal thing where,
Oh, wow.
it was cutting close as far as whether or not I was going to walk in New York Fashion Week because of things with like the floods and everything going crazy in New York. But again, not only did I walk for one designer, I walked for two, and I ended up getting I think it's called Getty's Images shot of it. So it was like very
Yes.
surreal and very, very just a wonderful experience because that's definitely something that's always been on my kind of like my bucket list. As a model, you always want to be able to at least walk in New York Fashion Week once. So I was an accomplishment for myself I was really proud of.
I saw some of these photos that you were able to do like on your Instagram. So of course, check her Instagram. She takes amazing photos.
Thank you.
Best, honestly. And you stated that this was your first experience with New York Fashion Week. Oh my goodness. So I can imagine the feeling of being overwhelmed. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you stated that like not only one designer, but two.
Mm-hmm.
That's honestly incredible. I imagine
Mm-hmm.
how like overwhelming and excited that was. Can you share the types of emotions that you did feel when you were walking?
Ironically, I was pretty much calm because there's something, I don't know how else to explain it. I guess some people get really bad stage fright, but almost the adrenaline is comforting to me. So when I see myself, I didn't actually get to see my face that much, just a little bit when I got my makeup done in the outfit. But when I kind of am in this performance zone of like, all right, it's about to be showtime, I have this weird serenity that comes over me. So initially I was like really nervous and anxious when it came to everything coming together. But once I was in the outfit and I was lined up to get ready to walk, it was just like, I felt honestly like I was floating. Everything felt fine. Everything felt to me as it should. So, and then when it came to the other designer kind of picking me aside, it was very surreal. It was just like, oh, okay, like, because easily this person could have turned away and been like, no, this girl doesn't work, her face, her body, whatever, the things that, as a model, you have to be subjected to and get comfortable with the criticism. But she was like, no, she's perfect. And she was ready to kind of, throw me in there and represent her, which is, at the end of the day, a lot of people see it as just like walking around wearing clothes, but it's a big honor because you're representing someone's entire brand. So it was just very much, it was like a very surreal, but at the same, it was like a weird peace within the chaos, essentially.
That is so beautifully put. Peace within the chaos. I love that
Mm-hmm.
so much. And you did mention in the beginning when we were speaking that you also do like content creator work or influencer work. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, of course. So that was another funny thing that kind of started on accident too. At the time, I was friends with someone who was more heavily into it. Like she was one of the people that first did work with Glossier, and she even did work, I think, with like Victoria's Secret Pink at a collegiate level. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was really a thing because it was essentially a way to market and advertise. And it was when it was still kind of growing, essentially. And at the time, I only started Instagram, I think like in 2017. Like I never really had it when it was like popular in high school and stuff. I was actually had an aversion to it. I was like, I don't want people knowing my business and stuff. I hate Facebook. So I essentially ended up signing up for, it was like a collegiate kind of brand ambassadorship with Amazon. And I ended up getting it. And I was super stoked because they flew me out for training to Boston. And they ended up flying me out for my second time in New York to their New York offices to, meet with the team there and everything. So once I started seeing like, oh, okay, these brands are actually taking interest in my work, and they actually connected me with a collaboration with Calvin Klein that got featured on their page and everything, that they were like, especially like having the aspirations of modeling then and being able to see like where it can lead to the connection with the brands and everything, I was just very much enthralled by it. And then I also saw there was opportunity for other things that I'm passionate for, like activist work. So I was like, okay, you can actually work on these brands that actually have similar values and, you know, be able to make a difference with it. So of course, yeah, you can also talk about like the cute clothes and things, but you can also, share where some of your passions lie. So I kind of fell in love with it, and I was able to kind of make a little career out of it too. So that's, I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, as someone who likes to take photos, as someone who likes to do copywriting, as someone who, it kind of takes all of my skills artistically that, I felt like couldn't work necessarily in a very rigid corporate sense, and mesh them all together so I can be fully, provide what it is that I love to do in a way that, a company can just hire me for who I am, not me adhering to a company, if that makes sense.
Yes, of course. Oh my goodness. You are honestly like a triple threat. Like you got the acting, the modeling, this
Mhm.
content creating while still doing activism and being able to create yourself and your own personal brand with all the work that you are doing, which
Mhm.
honestly is amazing. I've met so many
Thank you.
wonderful people through Mija, and
Mhm.
each time I'm more and more inspired by people like you and other
Thank you.
women that we meet. And honestly, it's fantastic. And where do you see your career going? What are some goals that you're hoping to make in the future with your career?
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy to think about because as the more I kind of take note of it, and I'm huge on manifesting, the more I like review my manifesting notes, I almost have it like a little checklist. I start checking things more and more. It's coming into fruition. So I definitely want to really, take a big handle on acting. I fall more and more in love with it as each time I'm on a set, I just find another reason to enjoy it even more. So even just becoming, a series lead for a television series, or even like the really big one, like a huge blockbuster film, being a lead in that. Or even if I'm, I talk to my sister about it all the time. She's like in the other room taking a nap. If I'm even just like a side character that people kind of love because they low key steal the show, kind of like how you see in Stranger Things, like you have like
Yes.
these weird, funny, like cults of fans and things. And I'm able to really bring a story alive to where people, just enjoy who I am outside of acting. I would love to be able to do that and really just have like a really tight knit community of people, um, to be able to do more, like just do better in the world. Aside from that, here's another thing I do. I study technical sciences
Oh,
as
wow.
well. So I want to be able to at some point facilitate something where I can help, more kids get into tech. So one of the things that I started up doing on TikTok was just explaining, hey, there's all these different programs that, are available to help educate the youth or educate pretty much any age into getting into tech jobs, which can be really life changing because, and just, some people aren't comfortable with, standard college and standard, higher education. But if you get these certifications, you can have a job with Microsoft, Google, all these major companies and do well for yourself and even comfortably work remotely as well. So at some point, I want to have like some type of nonprofit, essentially use whatever branding or voice that I get to build for myself over time to give back to others, whether that especially be in the Latin community or the indigenous community, just overall people of color. I want to be able to help facilitate, our place in tech, because I feel like there's more that needs to happen there because I used to do that type of work prior. I used to work in GIS analytics and things of that nature. So it's like a lot when it comes to my career because there's so many avenues that I'm really interested in. And then of course with modeling, I really want to book a really cool campaign or work with some of my favorite brands, whether that be commercially like Glossier or Target. I've always wanted to have that moment where I'm like, hey, there's me just walking throughout the store. And I know it sounds really corny, but that's definitely what I want when it comes to modeling. I think it would just be super cool. And just being able to travel with everything that I love.
That is honestly, like, I don't think it's corny at all. I've seen a lot of people. I think one of the writers I met here I think I shared that also as a writer stating like I would love to just see one of my future books in like Target and someone being like, oh, this looks cool. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's my name. That's me. Like, that's
Exactly.
awesome. It's cool to imagine yourself like that. And you have like so many like amazing levels and different versions of like how you want to include Latinx community within your work and still help out, which is extremely amazing and humbling for someone that is doing so much in their career right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Had a whole question and I forgot about it.
It's
So,
okay. It's okay. I literally just kind of blurbed for a minute, so I'm so sorry. I kind of like took over there for a moment.
oh no, no, that you got passionate. That's what we want. We love seeing that. Oh, I did have a question. You mentioned manifesting. So
Mhm.
manifestation has been very popular on social media right now. And I do
Mhm.
know that Mija themselves are starting to bring up their own versions of manifesting. So how do you manifest your career goals or just personal goals for yourself? Are you able to show that to our audience on how they can also influence manifestations in their work and their life?
Yeah, of course. So there's different levels to it. I kind of have different methods, and I feel like everyone can kind of create their own method depending on what suits them. Case example, the easiest being that I always talk about is something called scripting, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're just writing everything down that you want, and you write about it as if it's already there. So I know, case example very clearly, one of the modeling agencies here in Atlanta, I've been wanting to be signed to for quite some time. So I just wrote in I have a specific journal that I don't write anything else in, but what I want to come into fruition. And I take a moment, try to get everything as quiet as possible, give myself a nice warm cup of tea, light a candle, the whole self care thing. I try to get into that. And I just write things as if, it's already happened and it's there. And I just remember the moment of writing that in my journal. And I'm also very specific about the date of when I'd like it to occur. So some people get a little bit afraid about, oh, what if I don't get it this date? That just means something better is happening to me.
Mhm.
But I wrote by whatever specific date I want to be signed with this agency. And now I'm here living in Atlanta and I'm signed with them. So it's really just a matter of fully believing yourself. And kind of, I feel like the great thing about manifesting is that it helps defeat the negative self talk that I think it gets in the way of people really wanting to do what they feel like they deserve and what they're destined for. I also like listening to affirmations. So it's really just, if you have a bad day and you feel down on yourself, you just pop in your headphones and listen to just very tranquil music. But on top of it, there's like voices layered together saying, like, I do deserve to have a good day. I am peaceful. I am abundant. I am joyful. I listen to that a lot because sometimes, even just going in the car, going to work or to get groceries, you kind of, it doesn't have to be like a set ritual thing that you only do when it's a new moon and when this is going on. You kind of include manifesting in everyday rituals, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So for me, I do that. I also like to light a candle. Definitely, Walter Mercado is kind of someone, being Puerto Rican, that I look to a lot, and he's someone that would always kind of gear a lot of his teachings through astrology. So that's something I look towards as well when it comes to helping manifesting. But at the end of the day, if you just wake up and you say, I want to have a good day, I know something good is coming towards me, and at night say the same thing, you're going to see a lot of changes in your life. So that's how I personally like to manifest. And I've literally seen, even just in the shortest 6 months, my life drastically change and just my mindset alone. Of course, you have to work towards it, but those are like the little things I like to do to kind of keep me on track for manifestation.
Honestly, that is some methods I'm going to try. I'm going to start trying those.
It's really good.
I see different ones. And you know what? Like writing it down probably is like my best bet. Just being like, let's see, that's how it
Mhm.
goes. Honestly, though, you've done so much in, oh, so I'm going to start trying it. I think
I
everyone
mean,
should try
even
her
like
method.
if you don't want to write it down, I'm trying to see if I could find it. I literally have like in my notes, I have like, it's called Manifestation Notes 2021. And one of the top things, like the top two things that I have checked off is I have, and it's just like, it can be anything. It could be anything from followers to, job opportunities and things like that. And I make it like a checklist. And I think because I love checklists, it makes it easier for it to manifest in a way. But I even told myself I want over like 100K on TikTok by June 2021. And I think I got there by like April. So
Wow.
it's one of those, and then I literally click check, okay, I did that, you know? So it's one of those things where I can look through and be like, oh, okay, cool. Like I was able to do this and like whatever, you know, maybe fall short of whatever deadline I set. I'm like, okay, either I work more on it or something better is coming in its place. So that's the way I see it. I mean, a lot of people see it as like a weird thing where you have to be super zen and super into crystals. And no, 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 no. I don't believe you have to make it that intense. It's really just manifesting to me is just changing the way that you talk to yourself and believing what you deserve, everything that you want in life, and just actually going for it. Because some people, I feel like the hardest part for a lot of people is just starting.
I completely agree with that. I sometimes you get stuck in your head. And so one of my last questions is that I feel like everyone should focus on is
Mhm.
how do you deal with self-care or self-love in your
Mhm.
everyday life?
Honestly, I just fall back on doing all the things that I know bring me joy. Especially just like even if it's something like fixing up my space, finding a way to organize something, create more efficiency in my life. I love doing that. I'm huge on IKEA. So anything that I can find to make my space a little bit prettier, whether it be buying a little thing of flowers for myself. Kroger had a good deal for roses for like $6. I'll just
Oh,
snag
wow.
that and be like, it's I deserve it. And really, I think that's what I do for self care. I sit there and I'm like, okay, I worked really hard. I'm still kind of tired, but let me just treat myself to something. I don't have to wait for someone to do it for me. And or even just spending time, especially like family is very important to me. Spending time with my sister and going to a museum or something that I like activities that are a little bit more peaceful. Sometimes that I'll try things that are a little bit crazier, you know, out of the norm for me, but really self-care is all about just returning to, I feel like, what my natural state, which is just being at peace and being joyful, whether it's a picnic, little things. They don't necessarily have to be going out and doing stuff. It could just be telling myself like, hey, I deserve to rest regardless of whatever I have to do on my to-do list. That's what's important, and making sure that my mental state is, you know, where it needs to be so I can continue to do not only good for myself but good for others.
That is amazing. And especially like letting yourself look at something and be like, I deserve this is
Mhm,
so helpful in your own like mental health every day.
mhm.
And once again, thank you so much for meeting with us today. It was
Thank
honestly
you.
a grand to meet you.
Thank
And
you.
where can people find like more information about you if they want to start following you? Like, is there a
Mhm,
specific website they can go to or Instagram handle that they can visit so they can look
mhm.
into you and see your future projects?
Yeah, for sure. So I have my general website, which is just my full name, monicamarierivera.com. And there's all my little social media links. And then essentially for TikTok and Instagram, again, it's going to be my full name, just at Monica Marie Rivera. And I do YouTube as well, which I try to help tutor people with acting and stuff as well. I'm planning on revamping everything, and that's just my first and last name, Monica Rivera. So if anyone's interested as far as like getting to know more about me and what I do or just working together, that's where they can find me.
Wonderful. So I'll make sure to follow her on TikTok so she can get higher on those goals, guys.
Thank
But once again, thank you so much for meeting with us. And we hope you guys see our next videos again soon.
you.